Hello students, welcome to CrackGradeB online learning platform. Today we have special guest with us, Miss Praagya Sharan. She has cracked RBI Grade B 2022 exam in her first serious attempt. So today she will share her journey. So first of all, many congratulations to you and welcome to the CrackGradeB platform.
Thank you so
So
much, sir.
yes, our viewers and the aspirants for next year exam is waiting to know your journey, how you prepared. So she has done MBA from IIM Indore and BTech from NIT in Electronics and Communication Engineering. So she will share her journey. So Ms. Pragya, yes,
Thank you so much, sir, and good morning to everyone who's watching this video. My name is Praagya Sharan. I belong to Ranchi, Jharkhand. I did my schooling from JVM Shamli. Thereafter, I did engineering from NIT Jamshedpur. As sir mentioned, my branch was Electronics and Communication. I graduated in 2017, and thereafter, I immediately joined the MBA course of IIM Indore. Graduated from there in 2019, and for the past 3.5 years, I've been working for an IT consulting firm in the capacity of a senior associate. Um, so this is roughly my background. So,
yes. So before RBI, that any other exam you appeared?
no, sir. In terms of the government exams, RBI is the only examination that I appeared for. I've given a few competitive examinations, like the engineering entrance, the CAT examination, the Common Aptitude Test. And this was my second attempt at RBI. But I do not have any background of preparing for, say, any other bank exam, UPSC, etc. This is the only exam that I ever gave.
Okay. So first we will start with the phase one preparation. So phase one, as you started your preparation, so you may be having in mind that from the social media that this exam is very tough, like quant reasoning and GS section specifically, and cutoff is also going lower side since last 2 3 years. So how did you manage this preparation? Means were you having doubts like will I be able to clear this cutoff or not? Because many of the students I have seen that they are struggling in this. They are not confident to clear, start. I mean, they are not confident to start the preparation for this exam due to this myth that this exam is very much tough.
Actually, when I was appearing for this examination in 2021, which was last year, at that point of time, RBI, I think before that, it was a relatively easy exam in the sense that the cutoffs, I remember for 2019, it was somewhere in the range of 120 out of 200. When I started preparing for that last year, I felt that it would be a relatively easier exam to crack. And since I had got a decent percentile when I had appeared for CAT, pretty confident when I was going to appear for the examinations. I had given enough mocks, etc. But I remember 6th March 2021, which was the prelims date of last year. When I returned home after appearing for the examination, I was very, very disappointed, extremely demotivated because the exam had not gone as per my expectation. I was not very confident even in my QRE scores. I felt that, I could have done better. And if the cutoff is going to be somewhere around 120, which was last year, which was the year before that, then there's no chance that I'm going to make it to the mains list. And I think because of this thought process, this negative thought process, I made the biggest mistake of just giving up my preparation for that 1 week, which was until the results were out. I
Mhm.
gave up my preparation. I started planning my holidays, etc. And I think that cost me more than anything else. That complacency, it cost me. And when the results came out, everyone in my family was very happy that I was going to appear for phase two, but I was very disappointed. And I was already anticipating that, I'm not going to be able to do well in phase two. And that also gave me a very big life lesson that RBI as an exam is going to be extremely unpredictable. And unless and until the platform, the RBI selection board doesn't tell you to stop preparing and that you are rejected, please do not stop preparing because the paper, pattern for the past 2 years is that the examination has gotten extremely difficult. The cutoffs are lower, and therefore, I mean, if you are able to give your best, if you give enough mocks, you very well stand a chance. So these were a couple of things that I learned during my journey.
So what were the major shows of your preparation for phase one? And
I
specifically, the students used to ask that how many months current affairs we should study and what should be the shows.
Right. So I'll first talk about GA. In terms of the months, I went back to up to 6 months, 6 to 8 months. I tried to cover that. I also had this in the back of my mind that since I was already working, I was very short on time, and therefore I had to be very calculative about my preparation. It was an intentional strategy that I'm not going to go beyond 6 months because then I'll have problems revising things. And I think revision is the most important factor of this preparation strategy. So I went back to up to 6 months. And also, in terms of selecting my sources, I didn't rely on very voluminous sources which are floating in the market because, like, for example, I'll say this, the Affair Clouds PDF, the 300-pager PDF, it's a great PDF, very, very holistic, covers everything. But then I knew for a fact that I will never be able to go back to that PDF again and again for revision or for quick references. So I didn't refer to that at all. I mean, I referred to it later. I would refer to it sometimes, but not for my usual preparation. I relied on concise PDFs, like, for example, the CrackGradeB PDF, the Bankers Adda PDF, which is extremely popular. And more than studying those PDFs, I think what I did, which worked for me the best, was I appeared for a lot of mocks for phase one specifically. I mean, close to 50 mocks, and as a result of which, I saw close to 4,000 questions of GA, just GA. So those questions helped me a lot. I prepared my short notes accordingly. I also gave a lot of sectional tests. So honestly, GA was not my strongest section. I scored a 76 in phase one, and my GA score was just 26 out of 80. So I think what worked best for me was the fact that I was good in the QRE sections. GA, and I mean, and I knew about that beforehand because the last time as well, I didn't score very well in GA. So I always knew that, I just need to score enough to get me past the cutoff. My overall score, I think I was relying more on QRE. And this kind of decision, this kind of judgment, I mean, a candidate has to make for himself or herself.
So you were working as parents also. So
Right.
how did you manage the time?
For I think so. I had to be very smart about my leaves. And I mean, I had to sporadically take leaves here and there. I was on good terms, thankfully, with my company, with my manager. So I think that helped a lot. And I was working from home. I think that helped me immensely because I didn't have to take care of a lot of things. I have my parents around. And since when one is working from home, there's still a level of comfort that is there. I would watch a lot of videos, the daily current affair analysis, which used to happen. I think a lot of online platforms, they conduct sessions for budget, for ESI, like, for example, CrackGradeB does for I'm not sorry, not for ESI, but for economic survey for budget. And I think sometimes even if you go through those 50 or 60 odd MCQ questions, I think that's more than enough to get you past the questions that are going to be there in the examination. So I'd rely a lot on videos. Even I remember I'd have meetings going on, and I'd simultaneously be listening to the videos. I'd be listening to videos when I would be, for example, going for a walk or maybe before I'd sleep, etc. And obviously, I had to put in a little extra effort there. That was always a given. But I mean, it's not something unusual. Preparing for RBI examinations with a job is not a very unusual thing. If you look at the profile of the candidates, there are a fair number of candidates who have a job already and simultaneously are preparing. So I think more than anything else, the mindset is extremely important. Um, yeah, and I think if you have these
Yes.
things sorted, you're good to go.
Actually, most of the aspirants used to ask that I mean, working aspirants mainly used to ask that what should be the plan. So, was there any plan you followed for your preparation? Like on daily basis, you were targeting phase one preparation. On weekdays, you were targeting phase two. So, was there any plan you followed during your preparation?
So my plan number one was that every weekday, like Monday to Friday, I would sit for phase one mocks. This was until 28th May when we actually had the phase one examination. I appeared for a mock daily, 2 hours of mock, 2 hours of giving the mock, and 2 hours of mock analysis. That was, I think that helped me immensely. And this I can say from my own experience because even when I was preparing for CAT, my only source of preparation was appearing for mocks. I think they helped us immensely. And I know a lot of the candidates do not appear for mocks, fearing that, our preparation is not up to the mark or that we are not going to score well. I mean, these kinds of barriers, even I had when I was starting out, but trust me, mocks help you a lot. A lot. Like, I cannot emphasize enough on how important giving mocks was in my journey of preparation. That was very important. Phase two preparation, and again, because I didn't discuss my strategy for QRE, my QRE preparation happened entirely through mocks. Like, I'd give a mock, I'd analyze my weak areas, and then accordingly, I'd either take up a sectional test or I'd watch a YouTube video, which would help me clarify my concepts. That was the strategy. I started my phase two preparation for management a bit early because I think management as a subject is very important. It's the most concise syllabus, the most limited syllabus. It's completely static, and you can easily complete management in 10 to 15 days. Like, it doesn't require more time than that. And once you're done with management, right, I mean, one doesn't realize, but you've actually completed a very large chunk of your preparation. So my aim was to complete management before phase one. That was strategy number one. And again, I think here crack grade B helped immensely, especially for people who are working and very short on time. I think the material is extremely concise, but at the same time, it covers everything, every important news item that there is. The segregation is done very well. I remember there is a particular PDF of reports which caters to the main organizations like World Bank, IMF, etc. Then there's a particular PDF for GDP projections. Um, Again, extremely helpful and handy. The PIB compilation is very nicely done. It covers roughly everything, but at the same time, you can always fall back on it for quick revision and references. So I think for current affairs, again, I think CrackGradeB material helped me immensely.
So, what was the main strategy you followed the phase two preparation? As you said, that management you covered before the phase one, and finance and ESI. When did you start preparing for this? Parallel to the phase one, or after the result, or have you completed before the notification itself?
So I'll first talk about ESI. I know, to answer your question, I didn't the static part of it. I didn't prepare it until my phase one. Obviously, for current affairs, I think phase one and phase two preparation is not exclusive of each other. They happen simultaneously because these days, if we look at the phase one paper, I mean, RBI has gone very extensive in terms of asking questions from schemes, reports, and indices, etc. So I think you start your ESI and finance preparation when you start preparing for phase one. For static, I don't think the static part of ESI is as important because the objective, it's completely current affair based. Like, I would say it's not even economics, it's just social issues. For static, again, there are certain topics, and for in a which when you read through the syllabus, to firstly please go through the syllabus multiple times, understand each and every term that there is, the implications of it. Once you go through that, right, you will be able to understand that there are certain topics which have a very high probability of coming in your descriptive paper, like for example the LPG reforms, the balance of payment crisis, the finance commission, budget, economic survey. And for the past 2 years, RBI has asked pretty basic questions, like they are direct questions that come from syllabus. So I think, and I relied more on my gut feeling, my instinct, when I was preparing for my descriptive paper. So I picked certain topics which I felt were very important, and I had my answers, like very short notes. I made around those topics. And for current affairs, it was completely crack grade B, the PIB compilations. And one thing I'd like to mention, even in those PIB compilations, I remember there would be questions, certain probable descriptive questions, and then the corresponding news item would be written over there that, you can pick pointers from this particular PIB release, and it's going to help you frame your answers. I think that helped because I remember there was a question this time on something related to minorities, and I remember relying heavily on that PIB press release, and that PIB press release came to my notice because it was there in the compilation. So, and similarly for reports, etc. Again, I completely relied on the crack grade B material. I went back to up to 6 months again for phase 2 as well. For finance, so again, for static part, my background helped me immensely because I have an MBA background. I've read things there, and I also appeared for CFA level 1 in February this year. So I think accumulation of all of these things, they helped me immensely for my static. And again, there are certain topics in the finance syllabus as well, which have a very high probability of coming into your descriptive paper. The global financial crisis, for instance, there's a topic trends in the international banking, etc. So I think that also, and you'll pick that out once you read through the syllabus. It's very simple. So go through the syllabus multiple times. For current affairs, again, I relied on the on the compilations of crack grade B. I also have a habit of going through the newspaper. So I think that also helped me a lot. Even if you don't go through the newspaper, just read through the editorials. It'll help you form your opinion. It'll help you understand things from multiple perspectives, and I think that is very important.
So which newspaper you followed?
So, sir, till phase 1, I follow the Hindustan Times. It's the one newspaper that I've been following for a very, very, very long time, like even when I was in school. But when I started preparing for interviews, I shifted to Business Standard because it's a very technical paper, and I always had this inhibition that I would not be able to understand it. But it's a very manageable paper. It's not a very heavy paper like how it's made out to be. It's a very user-friendly publication. So you can go through it. Like I can personally vouch for it. And again, I will lay emphasis on newspaper reading is because, especially, and this is from the perspective of interviews, and I especially noticed this pattern when I was analyzing the transcripts, that anything which has been in news today will most likely be asked to you tomorrow if you are appearing for the interview. So, and sometimes if the headlines, they ask questions right from the headlines that are there in the Business Standard. They ask you things like that, you say that you're very interested in finance. Who's your favorite author? Did you read the editorial? Who writes the editorial for Business Standard? They sometimes ask questions which are asked as basic as this. So I think, again, newspaper reading is important. And yeah, Hindustan Times plus Business Standard just before the interview.
Okay. So one more important thing students usually ask that descriptive writing. Did you practice on daily basis or anything you did for the typing to increase your typing speed? And were you able to achieve the word limit in the final exam?
Uh, Yes, sir. This was again a part of my strategy. I consciously has had this in mind, and this probably might differ from candidate to candidate. But I always tried that, my answers shouldn't fall short of the word limit. Like obviously, it should never exceed the word limit. That's a given, and that's I don't think even possible. But it should not fall very short. Like for example, if the word limit is 600 words, my answer should have at least 550 words. This was a very conscious strategy. In terms of typing, I have been into the habit of typing for a very long time because when I was doing my MBA, we would draft assignments. Even the job that I'm doing currently, there's a lot of typing involved. So it was not an issue for me. For someone who has just started out, I'd suggest that, buy yourself a keyboard. The keyboard, it's very easy to type on laptop, but the traditional keyboard, right, it sometimes gets a little tricky. You tire your fingers out, etc. So get into the habit of typing, practice. There's nothing that cannot be achieved by virtue of practice. So please practice, and I think I mean, you'll be good to go. Like 2-3 months of extensive typing, you'll be fine. Again, for the other strategy for descriptive was that I should be, and especially for management, that I should be in a position where I can write a lot of quotes, or throw in relevant examples from real life. I think it would blend very beautifully into my answer, and also it would help me increase the number of words that I've put into my answer. So for management, that was very important. Like I remember writing about, I mean, there was one question about women and entrepreneurship, and I wrote extensively about, Shark Tank and how women are coming up with their business ideas and they're being helped and how capable they have become, etc. Quoting, writing about Vinita Singh and Namita Thapar. And the examples that you want to write into your answer, you can pick up from your daily life. Like for example, very recently we have heard that there has been a very large scale layoff in Meta, in Twitter. Yeah, Amazon is planning a layoff. Now this is something that you can quote if you have a question from ethics, if you have a question on employment, if there's a question on privatization of PSUs, and how it's going to affect the youth, etc. So I mean, these were little pointers and strategies that I followed for management. For economics, again, most of the questions, they center around current affairs. It's very, very less likely that they'll ask you something from static part. Obviously, something from static comes up like LPG and balance of payment crisis. One cannot rely on examples, but for other things, you can happily rely on examples, and it'll help you immensely. So those were certain tips and tricks. I always write my answer in points. I do not rely on paragraphs. Pointers, they help me because I think it beautifully brings out your perspective and your point of view in an answer. And yeah, those were certain things that I followed for descriptive.
Okay, okay. Now comes to the interview part specifically. So interview, you also scored very good marks. I think 72 marks. Yeah.
Right.
So what was your experience and what was your preparation shows for the interview?
So my interview, again, I relied on mock interviews a lot. I gave close to 6 mock interviews. Two of the mock interviews happened with Crack Grade B. I remember Rahul sir, he helped me tremendously with my mock interview preparations. And I think the most important thing about the interview is that you must fill your biodata very carefully. And once you've submitted your biodata, you should center a very large part of your preparation around your biodata, because that is a very, very important document. It's the most important document that there is. Any word that you've mentioned in your biodata, please make sure that you've prepared very holistically around that, especially if you've mentioned anything which stands out in terms of your hobbies, in terms of anything that you've done in your college or your school, or the job that you are into. Please be very, very thorough with that. I remember my interview happened for about 20 minutes, and about 5 to 6 minutes were devoted just to Kathak, which is my hobby. And I remember a panel member, he took very keen interest on what I was doing, the gharana that I was associated with. He asked me very technical questions. So that's how important the biodata is. The second source would be the RBI website. Again, extremely important. The notification sections, please go through it. Do not read word to word, but have a brief idea of what's happening. The press releases section is extremely important, because sometimes RBI works on a lot of papers, right? Discussion papers, working papers, etc. And whenever these come out, they usually are mentioned in the press release section that this particular paper was released by the Reserve Bank of India. And more often than not, questions are asked from that paper. Like they won't ask you very, very detailed things, but they'll ask you some basic things. Like, for example, if the paper is on sustainable finance, they might as well ask you that, what is sustainable finance? Where do you think India stands, etc. Read the reports, the annual report, very important, very, very important. I didn't read it cover to cover, but the one strategy that I followed, which I think will help a lot of people, would be that, anything that is published on the RBI website, right? It has an introduction and it has a conclusion. and they're very, very concise, very simple, very user friendly. So if you're not able to read through that entire article, just read through the introduction and conclusion. You'll get a gist of what is happening. The speech section is again very important. I would never be able to read through the speeches because they're very long, and I'd run out of patience. So what I would do is I'd listen to the videos, because the speeches of governors and deputy governors are uploaded on the YouTube channel of RBI. So I'd
Yes.
listen to that on 2x speed, and I think that would be very important. Sometimes I'd also, read the speeches of governors which have been released like 2 3 years ago, and this would completely depend. Like for example, this year specifically, we were asked a lot of questions on NBFC crisis, on shadow banking, because RBI suddenly has shifted its focus to NBFC. And I remember there was this speech, and it was given by the deputy governor, one of the deputy governors who served during the 2013-2014 period. And it's a beautiful speech on shadow banking, like a very, very good speech. And I accidentally came across it because I just randomly typed shadow banking on the RBI website, and it came out of nowhere. And it was such a helpful speech that I remember I was asked a question on shadow banking, and I remember quoting things from that speech. It helped me a lot because you get a perspective, you get a point of view of what RBI in general is thinking about certain things. We were asked certain questions on cryptocurrencies as well, cryptocurrency and the central banking digital currency. And this is because, you'll read a lot of opinion pieces in the newspaper. A lot of the deputy governors have been talking about it. The governor has been talking about it. So you can rely on those as well. I think speeches section are again very important. You pick terminologies from there, which you can, integrate in your answer, and it looks nice. So RBI website would be one, the biodata would be one, and again, newspapers are very important. If you Newspaper reading is very important. I mean, a lot of people would say that even without newspaper reading, they have been able to score well. But if you ask my point of view, I think it helps immensely in covering current affairs.
So, Pragya, this was your journey for the phase two and interview phase one preparation. So, one more question I would like to ask that many students face the fear of failure. Did you face this situation? Then, how did you manage that?
Yes, sir, definitely. Like the fear of failure is very common to human beings. Sorry, and because there was always a sense of fear, that's probably the reason why I never had the courage to resign from my job. These examinations, the regulatory body examinations specifically, they're so unpredictable. You have very limited seats, and therefore I always, and since I'm a very risk averse kind of an individual, I never got the courage to resign from my job. And it also, having a job, it gave me a sense of relief, a sense of security, a sense of confidence that, I always have something to fall back on. Having said that, for people who do not have jobs, or maybe who are still in college, who are still studying, etc., I think you can get over your fear of failure by, talking to friends, talking to family members. I think they are very important people. Value them. I think the one thing that pandemic has taught all of us is to value our near and dear ones, to value our family members. I consider myself extremely lucky that, while I was appearing for RBI, the first and the second time I was at home with my parents, with my sister around, who'd take care of me, who'd talk to me in times of stress. And you know, I mean, there's going to be the fear, but once you rise above that, one needs to rise above that fear in order to do well in exams, especially exams like these. It's very important that you keep yourself calm, you keep yourself composed in times when there's a lot of stress, because always remember that you are not the only one who's going through it. There are lakhs of other candidates who are going through similar beats, similar situations. So just keep that in mind. We are all in this together, and I think you will feel good. I know it's easier said than done. When you're having doubts, it's very difficult to get over it. But just calm down, talk to family, talk to friends, and you'll be fine.
Yes. So, Pragya, any specific message to the future aspirant or any advice from your side?
Sure, sir. I mean, there are 200 people who clear this examination every year, so there will be 200 different strategies. that have worked in a particular year. So prepare your strategy accordingly. There's no such thing as the best strategy. Every individual devises his or her strategy as per the convenience and the situation that they are in. So understand your situation and pick the best and the worst. I don't think I'm anyone to give advice to anyone. Um, I mean, everybody is extremely intelligent. You have all the details on the internet, on YouTube. You have able platforms like CrackGradeB to guide you. So get in touch with people. Do not be afraid to talk to people, exchange ideas, and I think that is going to help you immensely. Preparation for such examinations, they do not happen in isolation. You need to talk, you need to share, you need to seek guidance when needed. So do that. Do not have any inhibitions. I think you'll be fine.
So, Praga, thank you very much for this wonderful session, and we wish you good luck for your future journey. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.